Welcome to another episode of Chasing the Wind. I'm Pastor Mark. Let's see how the Spirit is moving today. So, I just had a lively conversation down here at the where we do our recordings, and so what I'm going to talk to you about it. Kind of maybe the Lord's confirming that we're supposed to talk about this because it's been on my mind. It's how God's been working in my life. So, last time I believe I talked to you about sovereignty. And so we're just kind of touching on some things. Certainly we have not dug into all of it like we could. But anyway, omniscience is an interesting aspect of God that we kind of tie into his sovereignty, that God is all-knowing. This brings up a lot of questions. And so I'm just going to talk here a bit, and you take what you want out of it, and you can kind of give you some things to think about, because that's what I'm doing. But we talk about God's omniscience, which that means God is all-knowing. God is all-knowing. Boy, do we like for the idea of God to be all-knowing. And so I've had discussions with friends of mine about this and stuff. So being more of a Wesleyan, Arminian in that direction, free will mess you up if your theology does not allow for free will. So you start thinking free will, if you're like, oh, God's got everything planned, and then you throw free will in there, that's going to mess up your plans on God having everything planned. Okay, he has plans, but doesn't necessarily mean we always follow them. Does God always get his way? Yes, we say, but the follow-up question is, does God always get his way with you? And I don't think so. So God doesn't always get his way. So let's talk about this idea of omniscience. And we like the idea, people tell me, oh, God knows that you were going to make that choice. God knows you're going to make that choice. God knows that you were going to talk about omniscience today. So let's talk about that for a minute, because here's where I've struggled with this. And Dr. Bratcher was a professor of mine in seminary for a class that I had, and I truly loved the way his mind worked and he thought. You can go to, it's on his website. He wrote a paper on it some years ago. But anyway, talked about the idea, if God knows what choice I'm going to make, then I have to make that choice. Otherwise, God really doesn't know. And that's circular reasoning, and I know, and all that good stuff. And that's why I kind of talked about sovereignty a little bit, because what does sovereignty mean? Maybe we have this idea of sovereignty that God, I really struggle with people that think that God controls every aspect of our life. It's like, I'm not a drone. I drone on sometimes, I know, but I'm not a drone. I'm a droner, but I'm not a drone. I just came up with that one, by the way. Mel will love that one. But anyway, we're not robots. We're not, remote control cars or drones or anything like that. That's not how God operates in our life. And then we get into this idea that God knows everything. That means he knows what choice I'm going to make. And I've used the example of my wife and I go to Five Guys. We're cheap, so we get one drink and we share it. And, hey, we're married, so it doesn't matter whether we swap spit or not. Anyway, so that's an image you probably don't want to see, but that's okay. We have a license to do that, so it's all right. So we go there, though. They have the little kiosk. You can go get something to drink. And my wife will almost always, she'll go over while I wait for the food. And she doesn't ask me what I want to drink. And I don't ask her, just to get whatever you want. But she will almost always, I might be omniscient. I never thought of it. She will go over to the kiosk. She will pull up where it says the Fanta. She'll pull up the Fanta Zero so we don't get sugar and stuff like that. And then she will almost always get orange. Fanta Orange Zero. Now they have lime. Love lime. They have raspberry and peach. I love peach too. But sometimes she'll throw a zinger at me and she'll get peach or lime or something like that because she likes peach too. But almost 99.9% of the time, she will get Fanta Orange Zero, and then we may try something on the second round, whatever. It doesn't mean I'm omniscient. It doesn't mean she's omniscient, that she knows what I want. She just knows her husband, okay? So I love what Stephen Siemens, he's a professor at Asbury Theological Seminary, said one time during my doctoral program at Ashland Theological Seminary, coming in to teach a class for us. He said, I don't know that God knows everything I'm going to do, but I do know that God knows me better than I know myself. So this idea of omniscience has all sorts of little nuances about it. But here's part of the problem, and I have struggled with this for years, and I'm starting to just get a grasp of it, because sorry, New York and Western New York in the spring, that's what happens. You get allergies and sinus and all that good stuff. Sorry about that. But we're going to leave it in there because I'm human. So we on earth here, we live in chronological time. A little guy at my church told me, Pastor, your goatee makes you look like you're 40. I love that kid. I just love that kid. I might put him in my will. Or I'll just give him a dime and we'll call it even. Considering I'm going to be 57 here in about 3 months, 2 months, something like that. 3 months. So anyway, I love that kid. You look 40, Pastor. He didn't even know what 40-year-olds look like, but anyway. So we have this thing going. I don't even know why I told you that, but it was good. It's probably going somewhere. But we're on chronological time. That's where I was going. Sorry, I got to bring the kite back in. You see that kite flying? I got to bring it back in. I almost got lost there for a minute. We're on chronological time. But here's the interesting thing. God is not on our chronological time. God operates in a realm, for lack of a better term, that is without time, which is without reference. So there's two kinds of time that we will run into when we read the Bible. One of them is chronos time. That is what I just described to you. It is now 11:31 as I am recording this. That is chronos time. Kairos time is what I call God time. They're more like moments or events. It isn't about whether it's 11:31, 11:32 now. It is about that this event, this moment is happening. We have these moments, these kairotic moments down here at Drash Ministries where we start drashing, we start talking about things, and we lose track of time. Because it isn't about the chronological time. It is about what we're discussing in this moment, of what God is doing in this moment as we're talking about Him and as we're learning and experiencing God. So when we understand, and this is great, a friend of mine, and we had it was one of the better theological conversations I've had in a while. But we were talking to it, and we were talking about this idea. Does God know the choice, everything I'm going to do? And I loved how he put it, and I've talked about it enough times now that I can say it's mine. So, rule of preaching: use something 3 times, you can call it your own. So here's how he explained it, and I love it. God knows what I am doing because He's not looking at it in a futuristic or a chronological time frame. He is looking at it in real time, is the best way I can put it. And that's falling short too, I get it. So in other words, does God know that I'm picking up my bottle of water here? Chronologically, our minds say God. Well, of course, God knew you were going to. Now that's where I can get into. Well, then God, I got to do it. I always want to say, God knows you're gonna pick up your bottle of water here in a minute, so I got to do it. And got you, God. So, oh no, God knew you were gonna pull away. Come on, really? But God knows what I'm going to do because He is experiencing it not in a futuristic time, not in a past time, but in real time. He knows because He just saw me do it. So in His omniscience, that also goes back. He does know me better than I know myself, which is great. I love that God knows me. He created me for chronology. He ought to know me. But He is in my life. I might be working on a chronological time. But God says, that's great, Mark. You just keep doing that. Because I'm not worried about your chronological time. I'm involved in your life right now, and so as your life is unfolding, I'm seeing it. I'm experiencing it. I'm joining you in it. I love that. I love that. But then when we think about Christ in you, the hope of glory, if Christ is in me, in one sense, I am in that realm too. I'm in 2 realms. I'm in two realms. I'm operating on my realm, but then there is these God moments and those moments that God's just like, one of the discussions we were having this morning, does God care whether I wore a yellow t-shirt underneath my shirt? Some people are like, oh no, I got to know whether I got to wear the right t-shirt. God just says, wear something, man, wear something. No one wants to see you without a shirt. Here's one of the things I think, part of the reason we want God to know everything we're going to do. And here's why I think it is, and this was confirmed to me this morning. If God knows every move I'm going to make, I am no longer responsible. Mic drop! Now, there's probably going to be some of you out there that could argue with me otherwise, and that's okay. I'm going to shift more to a psychological position on this. That's why sometimes we like to have people in charge. That's why a lot of people don't want to lead. They don't want to manage. They want someone else to tell them what to do. Matter of fact, I run into that all the time, people. I just wish God would tell me what to do. Because then if I do it, well, God told me to key your car. Okay, I would never do that. But let's say God told me to key your car. So I go key your car. What are you doing, man? Oh, God told me to do it. It's okay. You blame him. I heard that story because this church was praying about this bar they wanted to get their liquor license stuff, and the church was praying they wouldn't get their liquor license, so the guy didn't get his liquor license, and he sued the church because they were praying that it was their fault that he get his liquor license. And the funny thing is that the judge said, this is the first case I've heard where the atheist had more faith in God than the church people did, because the church people were oh no, we weren't praying for that. I think sometimes we just don't want to take responsibility. We like the idea of God being our drone, okay, to some degree. We don't want him bossing us around for sure, but we like the idea of God kind of running our lives. Now, that's not to say the same thing as surrendering our lives to God. I want God to run my life, but I got to surrender to it. That God says, don't say that thing this time. Just hold your tongue, Mark. I was very proud of myself. God's been talking to me about, I don't have to have an opinion about everything. And if I do, I don't have to share it. And yesterday that happened. And okay, so did God keep me from saying it? Well, maybe, but it could be too that God, I just said, God, I remember you told me I don't have to have an opinion. This is one of those times. Here's the thing that some people have a hard time with free will. And it's not a problem for me. Imagine if I said to my wife, you will love me. You have to, no matter what, which is why I have a problem with the way typically predestination is presented and double predestination is presented. Well, and here's the, and it's like I talked about last week. If predestination is God already knows who's going to receive, accept him or whatever, who's saved and who's not saved, double predestination. Well, then why even bother serving God? Just live your life. If you're in, you're in. If you're not, you're not. And if you don't know, then I guess you're just you're shooting craps anyway. So it doesn't matter. I don't like that. And I can't imagine telling my wife, you have to love me. You're going with me whether you like it or not. I don't see that in Scripture. So this omniscience, here's what I'm cool with. I'm cool that God is involved in my life in such a way that he's watching it unfold. Isn't that, now, so that goes back to what I talked about last week about how we view sovereignty. Do we view sovereignty as a ruling monarch or as a loving parent? I think was it 3 John says, I have no greater joy than to hear that my children are walking in the light. It's one of those 3 little letters right before Revelation. A loving parent rejoices in watching their children become decent human beings, as Victor Borga would talk about, when they are not forced into doing something, but because they do it because they want to. Oh, I love it so much better when my dog, is obedient, and when I don't have to go and find her because she won't come back because she's rolling in God knows what. And how proud I am. Oh, it pleases me as Punch when I watch her hunt and point and retrieve, and when I actually do hit the bird, and it's a beautiful thing. And it's like that is more better to me. More better. Good night. I are an educated man. That is a better scenario for me than if I have to go force her to do it. I don't force my wife to love me. I don't force anybody to love me. And God doesn't force us to love him, because that's not really love when it's coerced and it's forced. So, you do what you want with this omniscience thing. Here's where Pastor Mark's landing today on this. I like that idea of God, and he's operating in a different realm that is beyond time, that he is just watching my life unfold. And I hope, because of my love for God, that he is pleased with the way my life's rolling. I don't always do it. He's probably like, oh, Mark, don't do that. Yep, you doed it. No, yep. All right, I'll help you with this one too, as I always help you. And I love that God knows me better than I know myself. And thank God he does, because there's days I don't know myself too well, but he does. And therefore, he can help me with what's best for me. Oh, we have gone all the way around the mulberry bush, and the monkey has chased the weasel. I don't even know what that means. Probably that's some sort of offensive thing to someone. Don't mean it to be. We have gone around the mulberry bush today, and that's okay. Good stuff for us to think about. So until next time, wind chasers, keep chasing the wind because the wind is chasing you. Grace and peace. I'm Pastor Mark.